Thanks so much, Simon. And just thanks for hosting the idea of having a commons where we do get to come together and we get to share. We get to share the ideas of kind of what we're growing in and what we're learning. And I can remember being a teenager and being really, really frustrated with my parents because they did not know how to change the time on the VCR. There may be even some watching this or in this call that don't even know what a VCR is. That's how old I am. But when we talk about technology and how quickly we can adapt to it, it's all based on usage. And so, what I thought I would do today is I would come, as I've just now recently completed my master's of education, I thought I would blend my educational degree, blend my pastoral heart, and bring it down into the family context and just provide a little bit of a biblical context for what does it mean to have knowing or knowledge in relationship to biblical wisdom. The way God had kind of designed everything and put it all together was that wisdom would flow from one generation to the next, so that there was a way to do things from the top down, but then there was the doing of things from the bottom up. I love in Joel chapter 2 when it starts talking about how, young men will have visions and old men will dream dreams. And the idea that there is this collaborative experience of two generations seeing the same idea, but seeing it uniquely to themselves. So when we talk about AI, we talk about technology, and do we, as Christians, do we want our kids to be held back from it? Do we want to keep them safe technologically and then pour into them spiritually? Or do we open the floodgates? Do we let them have a technological experience in the midst of our family dynamic? And I would challenge us in this context, in Deuteronomy 11, 18, and 19, the idea that fix these words of mine on your heart, God says to Moses. Teach them to your children when they stand up, when they sit down, when they rise, and when they're resting. Be the anchors with which our children are now moving out into the world around them. I love in John where we are depicting the prayer of Jesus, the high priestly prayer, that the people of God would be in the world, but not overcome or succumb to the world. And so this idea of how these two verses help us look in and create the look out rhythm to be a family of wisdom and knowledge working together, and then simultaneously taking that relationship and building mission around who we are and what we do. And so as we create this conversational layering, I really felt that Proverbs 18:13 could be a bit of a turning point of where we convert information into formation. That where wisdom begins at the apex of truth. Simon, you've talked about the cornerstone, and that in our Christmas season coming up into this Lego presentation, that the idea that there is a central point, there is a corner where everything stems out from. And this, we know that Jesus being our cornerstone is perfect. He's perfectly aligned and he's set in place so that everything formed truly and properly upon him will always be level. And I think that as we begin to empower the generations from the grandparents, and I mean, in our dynamic, we have great grandparents, spending time with their great grandchildren. And so we've got all of this life lived in between. And it's just so amazing when we're all in the room, and that every voice in the household has an opportunity to be carried. Every voice has an opportunity to bring that context or how they're forming and how they're seeing context and information. And Joel 2, chapter 12 reminds of this when he says, return to me with all your heart, return and beginning with listening. That we don't come from our space of wisdom or knowledge with the purpose of speaking, but we want to listen so that we're able to be together in this family context. Like, what is God teaching our families right now through our artificial intelligence or AI or these chatbots? I know that I hear news every single day that frightens me just a little bit. Frightens me of what's happening when our children are out in the world participating in different technological contexts without wisdom. They're simply just operating from knowing to knowing to knowing, and there's a limited voice. there's less caution that's there. And my prayer for you on this call, prayer for you as you're watching this, maybe after the fact, is that as a family, can we come around technology and find a voice that genuinely can be heard, not to criticize, but to listen and to hear and to know, how can I use this in a way that serves us, that moves us deeper into our relationship with Jesus, our relationship with our neighbors, even, and the idea of building bridges from one household to the next. In 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17, Paul is unpacking to Timothy. He's teaching him how to apply yesterday's truth to today's need. He's bringing this context together and then helping us learn how to build these bridges. Knowledge will always stay static. It will always remain confined in one context. It's only when we bring wisdom into knowledge that it spans across the generation. And we get experience after experience that if we can be unafraid, but be empowered by one another. I'll come back to the Joel prophecy in regards to young men having visions, the idea of this is what I want to accomplish, and the old men having dreams. I wish I could have done. And it isn't the negative context I wish I could have done, but the idea of, hey, wait, if I bring this experience too, I can be the wind behind knowledge. I can be the power that sends knowledge out through our next generation, through our emergent generation. So where maybe are you seeing God move in your context? Is he moving in your home, your church, or even your city? Where is technology, as you're observing it, happening at the fastest speed? Where do we need to be most in touch with one generation to the next? I know that my parents in their 80s now are very adverse to using technology in this way. They don't want to have that conversation because they'd rather have it face to face. But teaching them how to bring the question in the right formation, I think really allows us to change the way knowledge is just being poured into us. If we can ask better questions, we in the end will have a much greater opportunity to find the answers that we all are needing. And so I think that as I kind of wrap this a little bit, our goal is in the book of Ephesians to stand firm, to find our footing, to find the place where generationally we are supporting one another and we're standing together, unafraid of technology, trusting that God is omniscient and in all things. How do we then experience this supernatural presence, both in AI and outside of AI? How do we bring the presence of God into a generation that maybe doesn't know how to have a face-to-face conversation because they grew up on a cell phone? Maybe they don't know how to ask questions because no one has really taught them or spent time with them on being inquisitive and investigative. And they're just anticipating something is going to do the work for them. So I challenge you, I'm praying for you that God is up to something really, really interesting in this season. I'm not sure of exactly what it could be, but I want to be prepared and I want to be ready. I want to be unafraid. And yes, I know there are terrible things happening in technology. And there are many, many families and children that are wounded as a result. But my hope is that through what Simon and all of us have kind of come together around this campfire of technology, that if we could just share the celebration with one another, encouraging and empowering all of us to just be in the midst of it together, build bridges, build context, so that we can ask the really powerful questions that unlock this next generation. Well, that's what I've got. That's where I'm at. I'm praying for you guys.